Very simple, unrestricted travel for everyone who has this EU Digital Green Certificate. And as you say, July the 1st, it's been implemented across Europe. Quite a few countries have already implemented it. They include big tourist destinations like Greece and one of the big outbound markets, Germany, and a couple of other countries. But as you say, there's a 3-week deadline once Europe implements it. It's being voted through on Monday. The final stages of it has gone through European Parliament. And July the 1st is the date, but there's a 3-week deadline then for member states to implement it. And we kick in on July the 19th. What that means is that our effective ban on non-essential travel continues until then. So really nothing will change until July the 19th.
Okay.
The next thing, Joe, is who will it apply to? And it's quite clear that the only people that are absolutely certain of being green digital certified are the people who have been through a full course. Double dose, Joe, the most important 2 words in the English language. That means that everyone who's been through the full course, not halfway there, is going to be issued with this. We don't know a lot about the issuing process, but Minister Oisin Smith was on a webinar yesterday saying that the systems are being put in place. We have about 250,000 people who have had COVID. They will also, once you've had COVID, you're pretty much clear to travel. And we also then have the people who have been through the double dose. That's about, across Europe, it's about 12-14% of the population. A lot more have had the single dose, and we'll see what happens. Vaccination rates, they're rolling through. The 2 millionth vaccine given today, obviously, by Stephen Donnelly in City West. So that leaves a big gap in the middle, Joe, and that is the people who will probably still need a PCR test to travel to the main destinations we go to.
Okay, so to get this green cert, you either need to, as you say, have your double dose vaccine, you need to have recovered from COVID, or you need to get a PCR test. I think to depart from Dublin about 72 hours before you depart. So, I mean, are we anticipating this is going to be smooth? Like, say, for instance, you're one of the PCR test types and you get your PCR test 72 hours before departure, and that might feel like a tight window to get your documents in order. Where you go, you get your PCR test, they tell you you're good, you're negative. Who do you go to then to get your certificate on your phone so you can breathe through the airport?
Not exactly clear what's happening on the PCR test. That's where all the questions are. The PCR tests for travel are handled largely by 2 private operators, RockDoc and Randox, operate out of the airport. Very good process. I did it myself when I went out to a Spanish UN World Tourism Organization event in Madrid about a month ago. And you get this certificate, you get your documentation, you load it on your phone. It's implemented as part of the Ryanair boarding pass, and they read the QR code, they know you're certified and you're clear. Now, that's not the European Digital Green Certificate, which hasn't been issued yet, but the process is going to be very similar. And the real problem will be, the squeaky bits will be the interaction between private PCR tests and the EU Digital Green Cert, which is a Department of Health or a government-issued document. It's going to operate a little bit differently across the 27 member states. We have an idea how the Germans are doing it. We've no idea what the Irish are doing.
I guess the other concern people would have, so look, getting your cert, and if you're vaccinated or you've recovered, you have a bit of time and you can plan ahead. If your PCR test, you have to hope for, you know, that you get your negative result, and you have to hope that the cert is quick in coming or you'll be in big trouble. I guess the other worry is massive delays at airports. Eamon Ryan warned of delays. I mean, on the face of it, if you have your code on your phone, I don't see why it should be any more complicated than scanning your passport. But just human nature being what it is, the horrible thought is post July 19th, you know, you've done everything right, and then you're standing in an airport for 4 or 5 hours surrounded with people, and there's delays, and it's almost a super spreader event all on its own. So how confident are we that there won't be massive delays here, and why should there be delays?
Their numbers are low going through the airport, but the systems are working. You're absolutely right. There are 2 issues here. The airlines would probably be fairly good at shifting people through. They have to shift them at the bag check-in and at the gate and make sure people are have the digital green cert, because the airline will be blamed for bringing people in who are not entitled to land. The real issue then is with the state authorities. The immigration people will be checking people as they land as well. And that is where Eamon Ryan has talked about long delays. Unless they're staffed up and trained up, we will have a situation as numbers get back we had about 20 flights a day through Dublin Airport there in April. It's gone up to over 60 at the moment, and we're expecting it to be back over 100 and probably even more when we roll through certainly after the first 2 weeks. So the thing about delays, we haven't seen them in other countries as numbers ramp up, and numbers ramped up massively. But again, I'm not exactly sure what will happen in Dublin Airport, and Dublin Airport itself are pretty much geared up. The real issue will be how the immigration officials manage the extra. I was going to say documentation. It's not documentation, but the checking of QR codes.
So you're saying other countries are doing okay. So if people are thinking about the popular holiday destinations here, let's go Spain, France, Portugal type destinations. So far, you're not seeing situations where you're landing in those airports and you're being greeted by a 2-3 hour wait. They're going okay so far, are they?
Doing very well. Portugal opened in May. Now it's early days for Spain. They only opened on last Monday, and they had a big change. A couple of important things there. They under the age of 12 doesn't need a PCR test landing in Spain. You still need a PCR test unless you are double dose vaccinated or recovering. So there are only two countries that count, Joe, Spain and Portugal. 70% of our outbound tourism, leisure tourism, is to those two countries, and they're managing it quite well. And it's in their interest. They're enthusiasts for this. Like the way it worked was Southern Europe, which is more heavily dependent on tourism, was cheerleading this. Northern Europe was sort of led along, but it's very interesting. The EU managed to pull it all together, and nothing happens at speed at EU Commission level, but they got this through quite quickly. Okay, so I guess we'll be working with this cert and this system for at least a year, I would think, Eoghan. They say it's not permanent. It's we've seen a lot of unexpected developments with COVID, and I'm sure there's a few more on the way. But the one thing that the EU Commission is stressing again and again is that when they did things last year, and listeners will remember the traffic light system in October, the document that was drawn up by the Commission went into the Council of State Ministers, and a different document came out. European countries started going their own way. You know, if you go to America, you don't have a different policy for New Jersey than you do for New York, although they slag each other off and blame each other all the time. They actually didn't implement their own policies. What we saw in Europe was 27 different countries being a little bit one-upmanship. My data is better than yours. My testing is better than yours. EU wants to bring an end to that for the summer, but we can hear a little bit of it still going on, and we have a complication in Ireland with the common travel area with Britain, who is no longer a member of the European.
That's the other issue. Can you answer this in 10 seconds, literally? Sorry, I'm right against the clock. Who do you Google, or who do you go to now to get your COVID cert? Where do you go?
It's not available, it's not issued yet, but gov.ie is where it's going to be.
Gov.ie, that's the place to go looking. Okay. Excellent. Well, hopefully it goes smoothly enough. Eoghan Corry, editor of Air and Travel magazine. Thanks, Eoghan.
Always a pleasure, Joe. Thank you.